He watched through the security camera as his paralyzed daughter stood up and took her first steps. But here's the thing that broke him: he wasn't there. He was sitting alone in his office, watching his own child's miracle happen on a screen. And in that moment, David Robinson realized he'd been dead for 2 years. He just forgot to stop breathing. This is the story of a man who lost everything, gave up on hope, and then watched a complete stranger do the impossible with his daughters. What happens next will make you believe in miracles again. But first, let me take you back to the day everything fell apart. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you a story that will break your heart before it puts it back together. David Robinson thought he had it all figured out. He lived in a quiet neighborhood in Seattle, had a good job, a beautiful wife named Jennifer, and they were expecting twin girls. Life felt perfect, like one of those movies where everything goes right. But life doesn't always follow the script we write for it. Jennifer died giving birth to their daughters. One moment she was there, holding his hand, smiling through the pain. The next moment she was gone. Just like that. No warning. No chance to say goodbye. The doctors tried to explain what happened, used medical terms he couldn't process. All David heard was silence. The kind of silence that screams in your ears. He named the girls Emma and Lily, the names Jennifer had chosen months before. Emma came first, then Lily 2 minutes later. 2 tiny babies fighting for their lives in the hospital. And David stood there, numb, unable to feel anything but emptiness. The doctors didn't wait long to give him more bad news. Emma had cerebral palsy. Her legs didn't work the way they should. The damage to her brain meant she might never walk, never run, never chase her sister through the park like Jennifer had imagined. And Lily, sweet little Lily, she couldn't hear. Profound hearing loss, they called it. Even with hearing aids, her world would always be quieter than everyone else's. David listened to the doctors explain therapy options, early intervention programs, special equipment. Their mouths moved, but he couldn't focus. His wife was dead. His daughters were broken. And he had no idea how to survive any of it. The first few months blurred together. David hired nurses to help with the girls. He went back to work because sitting at home felt like drowning. He bought everything the specialists recommended. Custom wheelchair for Emma. Top-of-the-line hearing aids for Lily. The best therapist's money could buy. Nothing changed. Emma sat in her small wheelchair, eyes distant, body still. Lily wore her hearing aids but didn't respond to sounds the way she should. The therapists came and went, following their programs, checking their boxes. But David saw no improvement. No hope. No future beyond what the doctors had predicted. So he stopped trying. Not all at once. It happened slowly. He stopped attending therapy sessions. Stopped asking questions. Stopped researching new treatments. He hired caregivers to manage the daily routine, and he disappeared into his work. Into his office. Into the cameras he installed throughout the house. Yes, cameras. Everywhere. After the 3rd caregiver quit without notice, David lost faith in people. The 4th one stole from him. The 5th talked about his daughters to her friends like they were tragic objects to pity. The 6th posted photos of Emma's medical equipment online for attention. Each betrayal carved him deeper. Made him harder. More suspicious. So David watched everything through screens. He sat in his office at night, reviewing footage, looking for the next person who would hurt his family. Looking for the next reason to believe that trusting anyone was a mistake. He'd hired and fired 9 caregivers in 18 months. 9 people who either couldn't handle the job or broke his trust. 9 failures that proved what he already knew. He was alone in this. Him and 2 daughters he loved, but didn't know how to reach anymore. Jennifer would have known what to do. She would have fought for the girls with everything she had. But Jennifer was gone. And David had buried his fight right next to her. Then came number 10. Her name was Rachel Bennett. 27 years old. Quiet. Serious. She showed up on a Tuesday morning with nothing but a small backpack and calm eyes. David barely looked at her during the interview. He handed her a folder with rules and schedules. Medical protocols. Emergency contacts. A list of things she was not allowed to do. No improvising, he said, his voice flat. Follow the plan exactly. The doctors know what they're doing. Rachel nodded. I understand. But David didn't believe her. He didn't believe anyone anymore. He watched her through the cameras that first day. Watched her meet Emma and Lily. Watched her read through their medical charts. Watched her move through the therapy room like she was studying every detail. She seemed competent, professional, too good to be true. David waited for her to mess up, to cut corners, to pull out her phone and ignore the girls, to prove she was just like all the others. But she didn't. Day after day, Rachel showed up on time, followed the routine, spoke gently to the girls. And something else, something David noticed but tried to ignore. She looked at Emma and Lily like they mattered. Not like patients. Not like broken children who needed fixing. Like they were people. Like they were worth something beyond their diagnosis. It made David uncomfortable. Because if they were worth fighting for, then what did it say about him that he'd stopped fighting? So he watched her closer. Waiting. Always waiting for the moment she would fail. He had no idea that Rachel was about to teach him what faith looked like. What hope felt like when you stopped being afraid of it. But that's a story for the next part. 3 weeks passed and Rachel Bennett was still there. David couldn't believe it. Every other caregiver had either quit or been fired by now. But Rachel kept showing up, day after day, quiet and steady. No drama. No complaints. Just work. But it wasn't just work. David could see that through his cameras. Rachel had changed things. Small things at first. She moved Emma's wheelchair next to Lily's special chair so the twins could see each other better. She brought in soft blankets from home, colorful ones that made the therapy room feel less like a hospital. She added a plant by the window. "Children should see things grow," she said to the day nurse once. David heard it through the speakers. He should have stopped her. The therapy room had a specific setup approved by the doctors. But he didn't say anything. Because when Rachel moved the girls closer together, something happened. Emma turned her head toward her sister. It was small, just a slight movement. But it was the first time David had seen Emma acknowledge Lily in months. His throat tightened watching it. Then Rachel did something that made David reach for his phone to call her and fire her immediately. She stopped following the protocol. It started with music. Rachel brought a small speaker into the therapy room one morning. She set it down and pressed play. Soft piano music filled the room. Not the therapeutic sound program the girls were supposed to have on Thursdays. Just music. Beautiful, simple music. David's finger hovered over the call button. But then Emma smiled. His daughter, who barely showed expression, smiled at the sound of that music. David's hand froze. He watched Rachel kneel beside Emma's wheelchair. Watched her move to the music, gentle swaying motions. Watched Emma's eyes follow her movements. Then Rachel started singing. Not performing. Just singing softly along with the melody. And she was using sign language at the same time. Her hands moved in patterns, shapes, words that Lily could see even if she couldn't hear. Lily's eyes locked onto Rachel's hands. Focused. Present. David leaned closer to the monitor. Both his daughters were engaged. Actually engaged. Not staring at walls. Not lost in their own worlds. They were there with Rachel in that moment. "What are you doing?" David whispered to the empty office. But he didn't stop her. The next day, Rachel did something even worse. She got down on the floor with Emma and started moving her legs. Not the way the physical therapist did it once a week. Different. Rhythmic. Like she was teaching Emma's muscles to remember something. Left leg, right leg. Left leg, right leg. Over and over. Patient. Steady. And while she did this, she talked to Emma. "Your legs are strong, sweetheart. They just forgot how to work together. But we can remind them. We can teach them." David watched, jaw clenched. This wasn't in any therapy plan. No doctor had prescribed this. Rachel was making it up. Experimenting on his daughter. He should fire her. Right now. But Emma's leg moved. Just slightly. Just a small response to the pattern Rachel was creating. But it moved on its own. David's breath caught. He kept watching. Rachel moved to Lily next. She sat in front of her, signing slowly, clearly. Teaching her new words. Not from the speech therapy program. Just words Rachel thought Lily should know. "Love," Rachel signed, then pointed to her own heart. "You are loved." Lily's small hands tried to copy the movement. Clumsy. Uncertain. But trying. David's eyes burned. For 18 months, he'd paid specialists. Bought expensive equipment. Followed every medical recommendation. And his daughters had stayed the same. Trapped in their limitations. Rachel had been here 3 weeks and his daughters were trying. That night, David couldn't sleep. He sat in his office until 3 a.m, reviewing footage. Watching Rachel work with the girls. Watching his daughters respond to her in ways they never responded to anyone else. He opened his laptop and searched, neuroplasticity in children with disabilities. Articles filled his screen. Medical journals. Research studies. Stories of children who'd exceeded their diagnosis through intensive, creative therapy. Through belief. Everything Rachel was doing, it was there in black and white. Real science. Real hope. And David had almost fired her for it. His hands shook as he closed the laptop. The next morning, he went to confront her. He walked to the therapy room and pushed open the door without knocking. Rachel was on the floor with both girls. Emma's legs in her hands, moving in that pattern. Lily watching, learning the rhythm through sight. Rachel looked up. No fear in her eyes. No guilt. Just calm. Mr. Robinson. What are you doing? David's voice came out harder than he meant. I'm teaching them, Rachel said simply. That's not the protocol. No, it's not. David stepped into the room. I gave you specific instructions. Follow the medical plan. Don't improvise. Rachel gently set Emma's legs down and stood. She faced him directly. The medical plan has them sitting still all day with minimal stimulation. That's not treatment, Mr. Robinson. That's giving up. The words hit like a punch. The doctors know what they're doing, David said, but his voice wavered. The doctors gave you statistics, Rachel replied, her tone still calm but firm. They told you what usually happens. They didn't tell you what's possible. And you think you know better? Rachel looked at Emma and Lily, then back at him. I know that your daughters deserve someone who believes in them. Not in their diagnosis. In them. Silence fell between them. David's throat tightened. You're giving them false hope. When this doesn't work, they'll be devastated. They're 2 years old, Mr. Robinson. They don't know what false hope is. They only know how they feel right now. And right now, they feel someone believing in them. She paused. Maybe for the first time. The words broke something inside him. David turned and walked out without another word. But he didn't fire her. Because deep down, in a place he'd locked away, he was starting to wonder. What if she's right? What if I'm the one who gave up? That question terrified him more than anything else. David couldn't stop watching anymore. Not just to catch Rachel making mistakes. Not just to protect his daughters from another betrayal. He watched because something real was happening in that house, and he didn't understand it. Week 4. Rachel had completely abandoned the protocol. She created her own routine. Every morning, she'd sit with both girls for 10 minutes before starting any exercises. Just sitting. Being present. Talking to them about her day, about the weather, about anything. She'd sign everything to Lily while speaking to Emma. Making sure both girls were included in every moment. Then the exercises. But not the stiff, clinical movements the therapists had prescribed. Rachel made it playful. She'd move Emma's legs to music, counting in rhythm. She'd play games with Lily using sign language, teaching her words through stories and laughter. The girls were responding. Actually responding. David watched Emma try to lift her leg during an exercise. It barely moved, just a small twitch. But it was intentional. She was trying. He watched Lily's hands form new signs. Clumsy at first, then clearer. She was learning. Every night, David fell deeper into the footage. He'd watched the same scenes multiple times, looking for proof that this was real. That his daughters were actually improving. One night, he found a moment that made him pause the video. Rachel was reading to the girls. A children's book about a bird who couldn't fly. She read it out loud for Emma while signing every word for Lily. Everyone told the little bird she'd never fly, Rachel read, her hands moving gracefully. But the bird didn't listen. She climbed to the highest branch every single day. And every single day she jumped. Emma's eyes were fixed on Rachel's face. Lily's eyes followed her hands. Did she ever fly? Rachel asked them, looking between both girls. What do you think? Silence. But both girls were present. Engaged. Waiting. Rachel smiled softly. She did. Because she never stopped believing she could. David watched his daughters watch Rachel. Watched them absorb a story about not giving up. About trying even when the world says you can't. His chest ached. When was the last time he'd read to them? When was the last time he'd just sat with them? No cameras, no distance, just him and his daughters. He couldn't remember. The shame hit him like a wave. For 18 months, he'd hired people to love his children because he was too broken to do it himself. He'd accepted their limitations as permanent because accepting defeat was easier than fighting for something that might fail. But Rachel wasn't afraid to fight. And she was winning. David started researching. Real research, not just late-night panic Googling. He read medical journals about early intervention. studies on neuroplasticity in young children, success stories of kids with cerebral palsy who learn to walk, deaf children who learn to communicate beautifully through sign language. Hope existed. Real, documented, scientific hope. And he'd never looked for it. Not once. He'd taken those first doctors at their word. Accepted their verdict. Stopped searching for answers because searching felt too painful. Jennifer would have been furious with him. The thought hit him hard. Jennifer would have researched everything. Would have fought for every possible treatment. Would have refused to accept never as an answer. But Jennifer was gone. And David had let grief turn him into a ghost. Friday afternoon, David did something he hadn't done in months. He left his office and walked to the therapy room. Not to check equipment. Not to review medical supplies. Just to watch. In person. He stood outside the door listening. Rachel was singing. A soft melody he didn't recognize. And she was dancing slow movements, exaggerated so the girls could follow. David peered through the crack in the door. Emma was watching Rachel's feet. Her own legs were moving slightly, trying to copy the rhythm. Lily's hands were moving too, creating her own signs to match the music she could see but not hear. They were dancing. In their own way, his daughters were dancing. David's throat closed up. His eyes burned. Rachel noticed Emma's effort. She knelt down immediately. Yes, Emma. You're moving with me. Look at you, sweetheart. Your legs are dancing. Emma's face broke into the biggest smile David had seen in 18 months. He had to turn away. Had to press his back against the hallway wall and fight to breathe. His daughter was smiling. Actually smiling. Proud of herself. When was the last time he'd made her smile? David slid down the wall and sat on the floor, head in his hands. He was her father. He was supposed to be the one helping her, believing in her, celebrating her victories. But he'd given up. Checked out. Let a stranger do the job he was too scared to do. That night, David didn't go to his office. He walked through his house instead. Really looked at it for the first time in months. The photos of Jennifer were gone. He'd taken them down because seeing her face hurt too much. The walls were bare now. Empty. The formal dining room sat unused. Jennifer had wanted to host family dinners there. The reading nook by the window was collecting dust. Jennifer had imagined reading there while the girls played. Every room held a ghost of the life they were supposed to have. David found himself standing outside the nursery. The door he hadn't opened since the girls came home from the hospital. He turned the handle slowly. 2 cribs still stood there, perfectly made. Jennifer had decorated this room herself. Soft yellow walls. A painted mural of flowers and butterflies. A rocking chair in the corner. This was supposed to be their beginning. Instead, it became a tomb for dreams that died. David sat in the rocking chair. It creaked under his weight. He picked up the blanket Jennifer had folded over the arm, pressed it to his face, and cried. Not quiet tears. Deep, shaking sobs that came from somewhere he'd locked away. All the grief he'd been holding. All the fear. All the shame of failing his daughters when they needed him most. I'm sorry, he whispered to the empty room. To Jennifer. To Emma and Lily. To himself. I'm so sorry. He didn't know how long he sat there. But when he finally stood up, something felt different. Lighter. Like crying had cracked open a door he'd thought was sealed forever. David walked back downstairs. The house was quiet. Rachel had left for the day. The girls were probably sleeping. He went to the therapy room. The door was open. Emma and Lily were in their beds, small bodies still, breathing steady. David approached slowly. His heart pounded. He knelt between their beds and just looked at them. Really looked at them. Not through a screen. Not from a distance. Emma had Jennifer's nose. Lily had her eyes. They were beautiful. Both of them. Perfect in their own way. I'm going to do better, David whispered. I promise. I'm going to try. He didn't know if they could hear him. Didn't know if they understood. But he meant it. For the first time in 18 months, David Robinson was ready to fight for his daughters. He just didn't know that tomorrow, everything would change. That in less than 24 hours, he'd witness something that would shatter every limitation he'd ever believed. But tonight, in the quiet darkness, a father sat with his daughters and chose hope. Thursday afternoon. David sat at his desk, trying to work. But his mind kept drifting to the therapy room. To his daughters. To Rachel and whatever small miracle she might be working today. His phone buzzed. Motion alert. Living room. David frowned. The girls should be in the therapy room at this hour. Rachel kept a strict schedule. He picked up his phone and opened the security app, expecting to see them taking a break or maybe having snack time. What he saw made his heart stop. Emma's wheelchair sat against the wall. Empty. Lily's special chair next to it. Also empty. Panic shot through David's chest. Something happened. An emergency. Where were they? Then he saw them. Center of the living room. Hardwood floor gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. Emma was standing. On her own 2 feet. Legs shaking but holding her weight. Actually standing. And Lily stood next to her, one small hand gripping Emma's shoulder for balance. David's breath caught in his throat. His whole body went rigid. This wasn't possible. The doctors said Emma would never walk. Never stand on her own. Her muscles weren't developed enough. The brain damage was too severe. But there she was. Standing. Rachel knelt on the floor about 6 feet away. Her arms stretched wide open. Tears streamed down her face. "Come on, sweet girls," she said softly, her hands signing the words at the same time. "Come to me. You can do this." David's hands shook so hard he almost dropped the phone. Emma moved first. Her small foot lifted off the ground, hovered in the air, then came down again, inches forward. A step. His daughter just took a step. David's vision blurred. His heart pounded so loud he could hear it in his ears. Lily moved next, still holding Emma's shoulder. She took a step too. Not perfect. Wobbly. But she moved forward. They were walking. Together. Emma took another step. Her legs trembled violently. She looked like she might fall at any second. But she didn't stop. Lily kept pace beside her, her balance better than her sister's. She was guiding Emma. Supporting her. Rachel's face was a mess of tears and joy. "Yes, babies. Yes. Keep coming. I'm right here." David watched his daughters take another step. And another. 4 steps total. 4 impossible steps. Then Emma stumbled. Lily tried to catch her, but they both started to fall. Rachel lunged forward and caught them both, gathering them into her arms, pulling them against her chest. All 3 of them collapsed onto the floor in a tangle of arms and legs. Rachel was sobbing openly, holding the girls like they were the most precious things in the world. "I knew it," she cried. "I knew you could. Oh my God, I knew it." David's phone slipped from his hands. It clattered onto the desk, but he didn't hear it. His legs gave out. He slid down from his chair, back scraping against the desk until he sat on the floor of his office. His daughters just walked. His paralyzed daughter just walked. And he watched it happen through a screen. Something broke inside David. Not broke like damage. Broke like a dam bursting. Every emotion he'd locked away for 18 months came flooding out at once. He pressed both hands over his face and wept. Deep, shaking sobs that came from the deepest part of him. The grief. The shame. The fear. The hope he'd been too scared to feel. His daughters could walk. They could walk. And he'd almost given up on them. Almost accepted that they were broken. Almost stopped believing they could be anything more than what those first doctors said. But Rachel believed. A stranger believed what their own father couldn't. David cried until his body ached. Until his throat was raw. Until he had nothing left inside. Then he stood up. His legs felt weak, hollow. But they carried him out of his office. Down the hallway. Past all the empty spaces where Jennifer's photos used to hang. Past the life he'd been hiding from for 18 months. The living room door was still open. He stopped in the doorway. Rachel sat on the floor with Emma and Lily in her lap. Both girls were exhausted from the effort. Their small bodies rested against her chest. Rachel held them gently, her face still wet with tears, but smiling. Really smiling. She looked up when she sensed him there. Their eyes met across the room. David expected to see pride in her face. A look that said, "I told you so." But that's not what he saw. He saw compassion. For him. Rachel didn't say anything. Just watched him with those calm, steady eyes. Still holding his daughters. Still being the person they needed. David's legs gave out for the second time. He dropped to his knees in the doorway. Couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Rachel gently shifted the girls. She signed something to Lily, who nodded. Then she looked at David. "They wanted to surprise you," she said softly. "We've been practicing for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, his daughters had been learning to walk, and he'd been too busy watching through cameras to see it happening. How? David's voice cracked. How did you know they could? Rachel looked down at Emma and Lily. Then back at him. I didn't know, Mr. Robinson. I just believed it was possible. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. The words hit him like a physical force. David crawled forward on his knees. Slowly. like approaching something sacred. When he reached them, his hands shook as he touched Emma's face. Then Lily's. His daughters. His beautiful, strong, impossible daughters. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." He gathered them into his arms, pulled them close, pressed his face against their small heads and breathed them in. Really felt them for the first time in so long. "I gave up on you," he said, voice breaking. "I was so scared of losing more that I stopped seeing what I still had. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Emma's small hand touched his face. Lily's fingers signed something against his chest. "Daddy." David's heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the same moment. Rachel quietly moved back, giving them space. But David reached out and grabbed her hand. "Don't go," he said. "Please." She nodded and stayed. They sat there together on the living room floor. A broken father holding his daughters. A faithful woman who refused to accept impossible. Two empty wheelchairs pushed against the wall. David looked at Rachel through blurred vision. "You gave them their legs back." Rachel shook her head. "No, Mr. Robinson. They gave themselves their legs. I just reminded them they could try." David closed his eyes. Jennifer would have loved this woman. Would have loved this moment. Somewhere he believed his wife was watching. And maybe finally she was proud of him again. The afternoon light shifted through the windows. The house felt different. Not empty anymore. Not silent. Alive. David held his daughters tighter and let himself feel something he'd forgotten existed. Real hope. The kind that costs everything and gives back even more. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. More therapy. More challenges. More work. But for the first time in 18 months, David Robinson wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Because he finally understood. Miracles don't need permission. They just need someone brave enough to believe they're possible. And sometimes miracles need a father to wake up and start believing again too. 3 months later, David sat on the floor of the therapy room, a place he'd only watched through screens for so long. Now he was there every day. Emma stood between his knees, holding his hands for balance. Her legs were stronger now. She could stand for almost a full minute without help. "Ready?" David asked. Emma nodded, determination on her tiny face. David let go of one hand. Emma wobbled but stayed upright. Then he let go of the other. For 5 seconds, Emma stood completely on her own. Her arms stretched out like a tightrope walker. Her face scrunched with concentration. Then her legs started to shake. David caught her before she fell, pulling her into a hug. "Yes," he shouted, spinning her around. "You did it." 5 seconds. Emma giggled. That sound, her laughter, it never got old. Across the room, Rachel sat with Lily at a small table. They were practicing sign language together. Lily's hands moved quickly now, forming words with increasing confidence. "Tree," Lily signed. "Good," Rachel signed back. "Now show me happy." Lily's hands moved to her chest, circling outward. Her face broke into a huge smile. David watched them, his heart full in a way he'd forgotten was possible. Life looked different now. Not perfect. Emma still used her wheelchair for long distances. Lily still couldn't hear the world the way others did. But they were growing, learning, becoming more than their diagnosis. And David was there. Actually there. Not hiding in his office. Not watching through cameras. Present. He'd learned to sign so he could talk to Lily. Spent hours practicing until his hands could say, "I love you, and I'm proud of you, and I'm here." He'd learned the therapy exercises so he could work with Emma every evening. They'd made it their routine. Just the two of them. Father and daughter. Trying together. Rachel was still there too, but her role had changed. She wasn't just a caregiver anymore. She was family. The person who'd saved them all by refusing to give up. Some evenings, after the girls were asleep, David and Rachel would sit in the living room and talk. About progress. About setbacks. About Jennifer. David could talk about his wife now. Could remember the good without drowning in the grief. Rachel listened without judgment, without trying to fix him. Just listened. "She'd be proud of you," Rachel said one night. David looked down at his hands. "I don't know about that. I wasted so much time. You found your way back. That's what matters." David wanted to believe that. Most days he did. Some days the guilt still crept in, reminding him of all the months he'd lost. All the moments he'd missed. But then Emma would take a few steps on her own, or Lily would sign a new word she'd learned, and David would remember. It's not about the time you lost. It's about what you do with the time you have left. The house felt different too. David had repainted the nursery, turned it into a proper bedroom for the girls. Put up the photos of Jennifer again. Let her smile back into their lives. He opened the curtains. Let light into rooms that had been dark for too long. Started using the dining room for family dinners, even if family was just him, Rachel, and 2 little girls in high chairs. The fountain in the garden worked again. David had it fixed. Sometimes he'd take the girls outside, and they'd watch the water together. Emma loved it. She'd reach toward the spray, laughing when drops hit her face. Lily would feel the vibrations of the water through the stone basin, her eyes wide with wonder. Small things. Normal things. The life Jennifer had wanted for them. One Saturday morning, David took the girls to the park. Just the 3 of them. He pushed Emma's wheelchair along the path while Lily walked beside them, holding onto the armrest. They stopped near the playground. David lifted Emma out of her chair and set her on the grass. She stood there, wobbling but strong, and took 2 steps toward a flower. Other parents watched. Some with curiosity. Some with pity. David used to hate those looks. Now he didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see what his daughter could do. Lily tugged on his hand. When he looked down, she signed, "Swing." "You want to swing?" She nodded eagerly. David lifted her onto the baby's swing and pushed gently. Lily threw her head back, feeling the wind on her face even if she couldn't hear the world rushing by. Pure joy. Emma watched from the grass, clapping her hands. This was what Jennifer wanted. Not perfection. Not a life without challenges. Just moments. Simple, beautiful moments of being together. David's eyes burned, but they were good tears this time. That night, after the girls were asleep, David sat in his office. The monitors were still there, but he rarely used them anymore. Didn't need to. He trusted Rachel. More importantly, he trusted himself to be present. He opened his laptop and started typing. An email to the specialist who'd first diagnosed Emma. "Dear Dr. Peterson, you told me 2 years ago that my daughter would never walk, that her cerebral palsy was too severe, that I should prepare for a life of limitations. I'm writing to tell you that yesterday, Emma took 7 steps on her own. I'm not writing this to prove you wrong. I'm writing because other parents will sit in your office and hear the same words I heard. And I want you to tell them something else too. Tell them about neuroplasticity. Tell them about early intervention. Tell them that statistics don't determine destiny. Tell them that never is not a medical term. It's a limitation we put on ourselves. Most importantly, tell them not to give up. Because miracles happen when we stop being afraid to believe in them." David signed his name and hit send. He closed the laptop and walked upstairs. Checked on Emma and Lily one more time before bed. They slept peacefully, their small bodies still. Emma's wheelchair sat in the corner, but it wasn't the only thing that defined her anymore. Lily's hearing aids were on the nightstand, but they weren't all she was. These girls were fighters. Survivors. Proof that the human spirit could exceed any diagnosis. And David was their father. Not perfect. Still learning. Still carrying grief that would probably never fully leave. But trying. Every single day trying. He thought about Jennifer as he stood in the doorway. Wondered what she'd say if she could see them now. Maybe she'd be angry that it took him so long to fight for them. Maybe she'd understand that grief breaks people in different ways. Maybe she'd just be glad he found his way back. David liked to think she was proud. That somewhere, somehow, she knew her daughters were going to be okay. Not because their challenges disappeared, but because they had people who refused to stop believing in them. "Thank you," David whispered to the empty hallway. To Jennifer. To Rachel. To whatever force in the universe gives people second chances. Then he went to bed. And for the first time in 2 years, David Robinson slept peacefully. Because tomorrow, Emma might take 8 steps. Lily might learn 5 new signs. And David would be there to see it. Not through a camera. Not from a distance. Right there. Present. Believing. That's all miracles really need. Someone brave enough to believe they're possible. And someone willing to fight for them when everyone else says to give up. David had learned that lesson the hard way. But he'd learned it. And that made all the difference. The end. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. We all face impossible situations sometimes. But impossible is just a word. It's not a destiny. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever witnessed a miracle? Have you ever been the miracle someone else needed? Your story matters. Share it below.